So I want to say thanks to Heather for reading that passage to us. Commandment number 4 today, let me read it to you. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Keeping the Sabbath day, how to get the best out of God's day of rest. Would you agree with me that the pace of life is hectic? Well, I'll say yes. We talk of the peak and the rush hour, and we're always telling our children to hurry up and get a move on. Our work and the demand upon us seems to grow more and more to actually fit into the limited time that we have. Time is increasingly in short supply, and we spend a great deal of our time complaining about it. How often have you heard yourself or even someone else say this? If only I had the time. There's never enough time. I don't know where the time goes. But how do you find the time? I'm pressed for time. I'll try and find the time. Is that the time already? My, how time flies. How could you fit in the time? Mustn't waste time. I just ran out of time. I don't even get time to think. It's unbelievable, isn't it, the list? And we have many different types of expressions that we use, don't we? Here's some further ones. I don't have a moment to spare. There's always so much to do. We're flat out at the moment. So the question, I wonder what kind of week you've just had. Good, bad, miserable, demanding, exhausting? I wonder how many times you've come into a church service even feeling absolutely weary, tired, exhausted, flat. Do you know what the problem is? You're too busy. I'm too busy. You're working too hard, too long. I need to rest. Now, if your body could talk, what would it say? Perhaps it is talking in the language of protest when we refuse to cooperate with God's principles for proper maintenance. 7 days work makes 1 week, W-E-A-K. 60% of successful professionals say that they are suffering chronic stress or depression. And you see, God has arranged time in such a way that it unfolds in a 7-day cycle. And the 4th commandment states that our work is done in 6 days. But the pace of many people's lives is killing them. Many people are burnt out. And now we can burn the candles at both ends, but then we'll discover that we're not that bright after all. We can have so many irons in the fire, but we actually put the fire out. Our wise, loving Creator and Maker has given these 10 basic instructions in His owner's manual. And instruction number 4 today is take 1 day off as a total rest each week. What a great idea. What a gift. A day of rest each week is God's loving gift to weary, stressed out people. That's what this is really about. I know if you're like me, we come to this commandment with a lot of baggage, some good, some bad, some neutral. In our culture, Sundays as a day of rest has changed dramatically in the last 40 years and will change drastically in the next 40 years. So we need to get to the core principles in this command and be very sure about it. Now, many people cannot avoid working on a Sunday. There are the emergency services. Are they breaking the 4th commandment? No, because the Bible also says that works of necessity, works of mercy, and works of emergency are fine on the Sabbath. But the question, what are the core principles in this command that are valid, relevant for us today in 21st century Northern Ireland? Well, God gave us this command number 4 primarily because He wants us to enjoy a relationship with Him. He wants us to delight ourselves in Him. He wants us to enjoy our relationship with Him. And He wants us to deepen and strengthen our relationship with Him. Any loving couple needs special times, quality times, protected times in a busy world, simply to be together, enjoy each other, time for each other when other things and other demands can be set aside so that they can have some uninterrupted time with and for each other. And that's what this command is really about. Setting aside other things that compete with God for our time and attention and that squeeze Him out of our lives in a busy, hectic week. So, protecting special time to delight ourselves in God, to enjoy His love and His presence. These words in Isaiah 53 verses 13 to 14, keep the Sabbath day holy. Don't pursue your own interests on that day, but enjoy the Sabbath and speak of it with delight as the Lord's holy day. Honour the Lord in everything you do, and don't follow your own desires or talk idly. If you do this, the Lord will be your delight. And then the second lesson, protecting ourselves from the endless pressures and the relentless demands upon us so that we can enjoy a day of rest and not feel guilty about it. Jesus said that the Sabbath is a day of rest and was made to benefit you, me, us. It's a gift from God. And the question, what does God want us to do in and with this command? Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Well, don't let it slip your mind. Don't forget, because don't we so easily forget, and then we neglect, and then we disregard, and we bin it and we throw it out as if we don't need it any longer. So how do you keep it holy? Holy is different from the other commandments, the 6 other days to work. This is a day to have a good rest and indeed enjoy. Holy because it is set aside for God, for His use especially. This is a brilliant opportunity when we are cut free from other work to focus on God, to enjoy His presence, and to use it to deepen our friendship and our relationship with Him. You know how it is during the week, we're so busy. We're snatching time to read the Bible here for 10 minutes, 15 minutes there. Sunday is a great day for the Sunday papers for many people, but it's a great day to have that extra time to read God's Word, God's paper. So what does your day of rest look like? Do you cut free from the other things so that you can have space for the one really important thing in your life, and that is our relationship with the living God? This command reminds us to work hard for 6 days each week. Now, some of you are not employed, but you're still doing very valuable, precious, priceless work. As a young mother with children, as an unemployed person, family commitments, as a retired person, busier than ever. This command reminds us of the privilege and the responsibility of work. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul reminds us that work is also worship. Ephesians 6 verses 6 and 7, work hard, but not just to please your masters when they're watching. As slaves of Christ, do the will of God with all your heart. Work with enthusiasm as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. So the quality of your work, your attitude to your work and towards those you work with are so important as followers of Jesus, because He is our real boss. Does your work and the way you do it, your attitude, reflect and honour Jesus? The next point I want to say is that this command reminds us to take a break ourselves and give those who maybe are responsible for rest one day each week. Verse 10. But the 7th day is a day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any kind of work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. So do you take a break yourself one day a week? Do you give those you are maybe responsible for a total rest? There is this lovely rhythm and balance which God has built into this week, reflected in verse 10. And there are 3 strands out of it which we can apply to our day of rest, which for most of us is still Sunday. One day of rest is a wonderful opportunity. Number 1, to make time to worship and delight yourself in the Lord who loves you. We rest from work to free ourselves for special times of worship with other believers. Why are our Christian lives so weak at times? Our faith so fragile and half-hearted? Why do we seem to know so little of that freshness and vibrancy? To be that person for Jesus and for the good news that marks so many Christian believers around the world today. Partly because we're living such hectic, busy, stress-filled lives that drain us. We are physically worn out, emotionally drained out, spiritually washed out. Maybe some of you haven't been taking a day off and you aren't fit to live with. We're having the time to build deep and intimate relationships with God, with other believers, even within the church family. We're having time and space to be quiet before the Lord, studying, taking in His Word, talking to Him in prayer, worshipping and enjoying His presence. There comes a day when you say, enough. Why am I driven all the time to make more? What is it that drives me? When are we going to say that is enough? Because we desperately need to make and to keep one day different to the rest each week, where we can cut free from other things for this one all-important and consuming thing, enjoying and growing closer to our Saviour and our God. So the question is, are you? And number two, in your day of rest, make sure that you are rested, refreshed, recharged, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Rest, recover from the week that's passed, recharge, a day to recharge our emotions and to prepare for the week that lies ahead. Some of us are tired, tense, troubled, stressed out. So complete these following sentences. Number one, I'm ready to throw in the towel. Number two, I'm at the end of my tether. Number three, I'm just a bundle of nerves. Number four, I'm falling apart. Number five, I'm at my wits' end. Number six, I feel like resigning from the human race. When you look into our tired and weary eyes, what do you really need? Maybe we need a holiday. That's difficult at the moment. But a holy day, a rest day. Sunday is God's precious gift to you that He has built into every rhythm of our week and into the very DNA of our lives. It's a lifesaver because the alternative is maybe a heart attack, ulcers, high blood pressure if we keep on going the way we're going. We're always in a hurry, continually on the run. How do we recharge our emotions? Didn't technology promise us that it would make our life and lives easier? But computers, emails, faxes, mobile phones have increased the pace of work rather than diminished it. You know, folks, the Bible says that God leads me beside quiet waters. There He restores my soul. Did you know that the word leisure is derived from a Latin word, lycia, which means permission? The main reason so many people do not have enough leisure time is that they don't give themselves permission to take time to enjoy. God is just as pleased when we play as when we work. So let me say that again. God is just as pleased as when we play as when we work. So are you getting enough rest? And number three in this point, make time with your family and your friends to enjoy each other and indeed to strengthen those ties. Verse 10, but the seventh day is a day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any kind of work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. So why is the command to rest yourself and give those in your household a rest? Well, the answer is so that you can all be free to enjoy some time together. The most important things in life aren't things, they are people. It is not enough to grab a few minutes here or there. Model it wherever possible. Maybe at this point some of you are saying, why? Why should I keep a day of rest as something very special each week? Well, again, let me give you some pointers on that. Number one, because God chose to do so as a model for us. Verse 11, for 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. Then He rested on the seventh day. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. So God is our creator, and we're made in his image and are meant to mirror him in our ways and our lives. So the question, why did God rest on the seventh day? Was he tired? Did he run out of energy? No. He is building this work, rest, recharge rhythm into the life of the universe as a model for us to live our lives. God could have worked on. He chose to rest. So how many people could rest but chose to work for the money? Why? Well, number two, because we will be so much happier or healthier. Folks, the things that we want is to be closer to God, our families, God's family. Do you want to reduce blood pressure? Did you know that the French tried a 7-day week, but it didn't work? And so we got the French Revolution. The Russians tried it in the 20th century, and it didn't work. Then they had to return to that day of rest. A day of rest each week is a privilege, not a right in our increasingly godless society. Don't throw that privilege away carelessly by joining in the stampedes of Sunday shopping, and don't be negative with endless lists of do's and don'ts for a day of rest. Be positive. Think carefully. How can you honour and delight God and make the day of rest one of the happiest and most enjoyable days of the week for yourself and your family? Jesus said this in the message. Are you tired, worn out? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest, walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Folks, that's an invitation with today's date on it, for you and for me. Will we be offered it tomorrow? Don't know. We don't know whether we're going to be alive tomorrow. That's why it's so important that we need to respond to this invitation today, because it affects our eternity. And indeed, it does affect our destiny. So some points this morning to think through in that one commandment for you and also for me, that I indeed too need to build those rhythms and also fun into our lives, because that is what God created us to do. So we have our testimony of time and lockdown, and this morning Catherine and Andrew are going to share with us. So I'm going to hand over to them.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know us, I'm Catherine and this is my husband Andrew, and Arthur's asked us to share a little bit with you this morning about our experience throughout lockdown.
So one of the first things we would say would be we were both very grateful that our jobs enabled us to work from home. We know there's a lot of people who lost their jobs, were furloughed, or who were key workers and who had to keep going into work every day, and it was very stressful and dealing with a high level of risk. For us, we all thought the moving house would be one of the most stressful things that we would ever do. Turns out trying to work from home, along with juggling a toddler, definitely very close to that. As I say, we were very grateful that we were able to continue working from home. However, whenever we got to sort of the early stages of April and all childcare ceased, it put enormous pressure on us as a household, because not only were we both trying to maintain working, we were also then trying to look after our son as well full time. That brought with it, I suppose, a level of guilt for us both, because we had our work commitments. We were trying to work to our best ability, but at the same time then we were trying to then look after George and give him the time, I suppose, be able to play with him as best we could. You sort of felt guilty then whenever you were then sort of going back to your work and leaving him, and vice versa. I suppose we were very happy though that I got to spend so much more time with him that I wouldn't have been able to had it not been for the lockdown. We had many hours spent playing in the garden, out for walks, enjoying the great weather we had at the start. That's all time that we never would have had. We really missed seeing our friends and family. We're both quite close to our family. We definitely noticed things that beforehand you were taken for granted, just being able to call around, say hello to people. Northern Irish people are sociable people anyway. So whenever that was removed, that was definitely something that we struggled to deal with at the start. Thankfully, in the last month or two, that has eased off a bit, but obviously we're uncertain now as to what lies ahead of us.
Yeah, so I suppose, as Andrew has said, once we got over the initial shock of facing a pandemic, dealing with what lockdown actually was, we did start to try and focus more on the positives rather than dwelling on the negatives and everything that we were missing out on. And I suppose another thing that we were so thankful for was our church family, and especially everything that Arthur has done and put in place for all of us, which has meant, albeit it's not in our normal traditional way that we're used to, but we have still been able to maintain some sort of connection. There's been so many things on Facebook, and the online services have been great because Sundays have still felt a bit normal, albeit that we may have been to church with a cup of tea or possibly some days in our pyjamas, but we have still been there and we have still felt part of that wider church family. I'm also an officer in the Girls Brigade, and I suppose for us, March and April we would traditionally be seeing a huge amount of each other because we're preparing for our display, and we missed out on that this year, and it was something I think we all really felt very sad about. But we have been able to keep in touch as well through social media and through various chat groups and things. So I think it is important to keep those connections going, to try and keep as much normality as possible and not to lose touch with people, because I think it was easy to feel really quite isolated at times. I suppose throughout it all, I always remember, I was probably been in my early teens, and I remember the Reverend Cochrane preaching one Sunday on a passage from the Bible, and it includes one of my favourite verses, I suppose, which is Matthew chapter 6 verse 34, and it's, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." I have come back to that verse time and time again. I would be traditionally a worrier at heart. I'll worry about things before they've happened, and I'll worry about things that will never happen. So I've always taken great comfort from that verse right through exam times and any stressful situations, and particularly through these past number of months. I think because there's been so much uncertainty, none of us have really ever faced something like this before. And it's easy to lose the run of yourself a wee bit. You're thinking ahead, what if this happens, what if this? But none of us have really known what lay ahead, what each week would bring, what each month would bring. I think if you'd asked any of us this time last year what we'd be doing now, none of us would have said this. So yeah, I think that verse really does kind of sum up our lockdown experience. We're trying not to lose the run of it. Trying not to think ahead too much and just take one day at a time, and that was kind of our mantra right throughout it. We'll just deal with each day as it comes and see what tomorrow brings. We know there's still worrying times ahead, especially this week. We've just had more restrictions introduced. The numbers are really concerning. We're not through it yet, but hopefully if we can all, I suppose, over the next month, try and abide by the needed restrictions, and hopefully we'll be able to turn things around. Not to end on any negative notes, we thought we'd like to share a wee bit of happy news with everyone. I suppose the next time probably we see you all, we will no longer just be Catherine, Andrew and George. There will be a new addition to our family, as we have a little baby due in November. So we're hoping it won't be too long before we can all meet you in person and introduce you to our new arrival. And in the meantime, we hope everyone stays safe, and we can't wait to see you all again soon.
All the best.